Hello and welcome to The Debrief. I'm Seth Wrestler.
I'm Becky Scarcello.
And this is the show where we are meeting the creatives who are shaping Detroit. And here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the difference that the pandemic has had on different spaces. And it really comes down to size, right? I mean, imagine that you're a Walmart supercenter or you're a cheesecake factory that, can seat 300 people. Well, if you can only reopen at 25% capacity,
it's doable.
It's doable.
Yeah.
It's manageable.
You can make it happen.
Right. But if you're a small restaurant,
tough.
You're one of those restaurants, mom and pop restaurants, only seats 8 people, and your business model was to serve really great meals and basically, have 3 or 4 months of reservations booked in advance. That's more difficult.
Right. Right. Those intimate settings don't translate.
It's hard to make that transition to this pandemic. People who are doing, high-end arts, crafts, artisan things that have small event capacity.
It's been a really hard time to be able to deliver their mission.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to find out how a Hamtramck gallery is making this work. Small space, right? We're talking about KO Gallery, and they've had to pivot during this pandemic. We're going to find out what the story behind that is. Our guest is Nick Pizaña. He's a painter and comic book artist himself, but he is also the co-founder of KO Gallery in Hamtramck. Nick, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hello.
Thanks for having me, guys. Glad to be here.
So I just want to dive into the KO Gallery is artist owned completely. Why is that important to you and to the community to have such a space?
I think Detroit's always kind of been a kind of DIY city where, artists and people who are doing things are a lot of the times the ones putting it on. Growing up, I used to go to a lot of DIY shows and old factories or in people's apartments and stuff. So when I got to be old enough to do that myself, it just seemed like a natural thing to do. And luckily we appeared at a time when a lot of the artist-owned spaces that we had been going to were closing or getting pushed out. So there was just a real demand for spaces to see local artists in the city, and we were able to do that, luckily.
Yeah. So why was that important to keep it going during the pandemic, especially?
Yeah, especially during the pandemic, just because I think as artists, we like to have something to look forward to. And so with the pandemic happening and with, galleries closing, it's almost like you're in like a void. You're on a boat without a rudder, just kind of spinning around because, normally you're like, when's the next show? And I think for our community here at KO, our shows have been really good because it's sort of like a meeting place for so many people to have ideas and make connections and things. So so it was good to be able to keep those things going in the pandemic as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, you sort of tell yourself, I'm going to continue to work on whatever I'm going to work on during the pandemic. And then it doesn't really happen.
You need a sort of a deadline or you said, something to look forward to, right? Or someone to show it to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
So at what point we all went into this like, oh, is it going to be 2 weeks? Is it going to be 4 weeks? At what point did you and your partner sit down and are like, we got to do something different?
Yeah. I think we held out. There was a while there where we weren't even sure what we were going to do. Before the pandemic, we're a smaller space, but we're known for really packing the room in for our shows.
Yes.
Being able to draw from people from all over the city. And that was one of our points of pride. The show before the pandemic happened was one of our busiest shows yet. So we were really getting some real momentum there. And so just the nature of the pandemic just threw that whole model out the window. So we spent a lot of time just figuring out what to do and kind of what the appropriate thing to do was as well, because you want people to be safe. So figuring out how to show art, but still at a safe distance. A lot of places also did a lot of like online shows and things like that, which was interesting, but needed a whole different infrastructure. So for the first few months of the pandemic, we just kind of focused on the studio aspect of things, and we kind of closed down the gallery and just really got into our studio practices, which was helpful. But after a while, we wanted to figure out ways to kind of get that sense of community back into the space and sense of more people back into the space. And so that's what we started to work on more so later on in the summer. By about June or July, we were ready to start trying to figure out ways to make that happen.
Yeah, so you did a great job of describing what it used to look like. And those are some of those things. I look at the pictures of what your shows were like, and I'm like, oh, I just want to be in that sweaty room again, really with that energy. So what does it look like now?
Now it's very different. So now we're doing reservation-based shows. So during the pandemic back in July, we did what we were calling outdoor shows, where we're lucky enough to have these two really big, wide open window display cases. And so we were having artists show the work inside of there, which was really cool. We were able to get like a lot of foot traffic off the street, just people walking by and seeing art. I think a lot of more people were going on walks and things like that because of the pandemic. So it gave people in the neighborhood something to look at. And some other buildings in the area started doing the same thing where they were putting art out. So we became a bit of like a Hamtramck art walk, which was really cool.
Yeah.
This is like the equivalent of curbside delivery for artwork, right? I mean, that's essentially what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. As much as we could do.
Yeah.
So we had one group show and a couple of individual shows that were all really successful, and we got a lot of good feedback on those. But to answer your question about how things look now, we are back to doing indoor shows, obviously social distance. And so instead of the big packs of people that we're normally used to having, we're allowing 6 people at a time and kind of staggering our crowd out over the course of the month rather than all in one night.
Mm.
So that's a hurdle, right? You have to have now people in the gallery to show them the artwork. So that had to be a hurdle. What were some of the challenges and kind of hurdles along the way to pivot to this model?
A lot of it was really just figuring out what was safe. And that was kind of what we were starting with, was trying to get a sense of what was safe and what was like the responsible way to handle having a show in a place like ours. So once we figured out that we could do it again and we felt comfortable, thought that we could do it safely, then it was a matter of finding artists who were willing to do stuff. We just had a show with Jenny Marie, who's a really talented local tattoo artist. And she was one of the first people who had some work that she had done over the pandemic that was willing to show it. And so it's still kind of a work in progress. Like, we're still figuring stuff out. We're kind of starting new. And so each show we're kind of learning a bit more. Yeah, it's an ongoing process, but I think it's working out so far.
Yeah.
Has there been clear guidance on what's safe?
Not from the city itself. We've just been following the regular CDC guidelines. They normally say to have capacity at about half of what you would normally have or something like that, or I think a quarter. But we're doing way below that. I think 6 is probably more than enough. We could probably have up to maybe 10 or 12 people in here, but I think we're going to start at that number and continue to see how things go.
You brought up finding artists that were willing to do it. Has that been a challenge? Just, the productivity of artists over this time, or those that have a body of work that they're like, yeah, hey, let's put up on the walls.
Yeah, so it's been up and down. I mean, artists are all very different. And so you have some that are like, I haven't done anything. I've been laying on my couch and eating ice cream and just trying to get through life. And that's a very real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can relate, right? But then we had other people who have been really busy, really motivated. There was a lot of political upheaval and things going on last year too as well that got people active in the art spaces. So it's all kind of up and down and just kind of taking people as they come with ideas and seeing how they fit.
I feel like any kind of business now, mental health awareness is a big part of it. Just how you doing? Yeah. How's it going? And, I'm sure the arts community being hit so hard that's a whole nother element too. And you being an artist yourself, how has it worked for you? Have you been sort of more inspired and had more time on your hands, or the opposite?
Yeah, I'm someone who just paints just to cope with things. Like, I have to draw every day just to kind of get my thoughts out and kind of get whatever feelings out. So it's been helpful for me. I've had that same feeling of kind of being lost as far as not knowing when I'm going to show work or where I'm going to show work. Luckily, being here has been good. Just being able to work with the other people in the space and kind of talk through what we're all going through has been really helpful for me. I feel like my practice has kind of been a lot more inner. I've been just working on a lot of projects that I kind of find more personally interesting rather than making things that are trying to maybe sell or something. I've just been kind of focusing on the ideas that I've wanted to work on, but haven't had time to, and hopefully, getting myself to a place that when things open up again, I'll be in a good spot.
Yeah. Yeah. So what would you say are good things have come out of you pivoting the KO Gallery's business model in terms of advice you'd give to other people?
So I think I'm really enjoying our reservation model right now. And let me actually go back forward and just say that, I think in general, the pandemic has been a time that really kind of forced creativity. They say that what's the saying? Something is the mother of creativity. I forget the whole saying.
Necessity.
Yeah, necessity is the mother of creativity.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So just trying to figure out new ways to interact with the space and kind of having the outdoor shows, which we might do again this summer, and just kind of thinking of new ways to think of the space that we've already been in. And as we're kind of getting out of it, thinking about the ways that we want the space to look in the future. So that's been good to kind of get some time to reflect on things, because I think just getting caught up in the back and forth of everyday life, it's really easy to kind of lose sight of what's going on. So this has been a chance for us to kind of take things much more manageably, like a bite at a time. And kind of having shows by reservation has been good too, because you get more time with people and they can have more one-on-one time with the artists when they come to the shows and have more conversations rather than having it being like a whirlwind all at once. And so
that's a nice way to do it too. It's just, you kind of have the attention, and
that's kind of great advice for anybody with a small creative space, is that you can have more intimacy, you can have more real connection with whoever your clients, customers, the people you interact with. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, Nick, we've got one last thing that we want you to do before you take off. It's something that we ask everybody who comes on the show to do. Are you ready?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Okay, Nick Pizaña, co-founder of the KO Gallery. Tell us a Detroit creative everybody should know about.
You all should definitely check out Bulk Space / Shiloh Arts. They're a residency program and artist exhibition space they're underdoing some renovations right now, but they've got a lot of really cool things on the horizon.
All right, Nick, thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
Yes.
Look, I know it's been tough for everybody, especially, like we said, folks with small spaces like yourself. I mean, I think it's been amazing the way you guys have pivoted. People, if they are interested in the, making a reservation and following what you're doing over at KO Gallery, the best way for them is to follow you on Instagram. It is at KO Studio Gallery, right? And they can DM you and line up an appointment, right? So cool. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Take care.
That's it for us here at The Debrief. I am Seth Ressler.
I'm Becky Scarcella.
And want to let you know there's lots of different ways that you can see the show now. You can now see the show on YouTube.
Here we are.
And of course, you can always find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or just call it up on Alexa. And we've got a mobile app as well. Until next time, Detroit's moving.
Keep up.